Hello, and welcome to the Courtenay Turner Radio Hour. It is June 9th, and it is an honor to be here with you on WWCR Worldwide Radio. I apologize. Last week I had said it was my last one. I actually have 3 more, so there will be 2 more after this one. So it is a treat always to be able to spend this time with you. I wish I could continue. Unfortunately, I do not have the funds to do so, but if you enjoy hearing me, then definitely check out my work at CourtenayTurner.com. There's all sorts of ways that you can support the work I'm doing and keep my podcast going. And if there's enough support, then I'll come back on the radio. So that is CourtenayTurner.com. I spell my name like Courtenay, CourtenayTurner.com. And I will be putting this up for those of you who would like to hear it again, if you're listening on the radio, and also for my podcast viewers to be able to watch or listen on whatever platforms you prefer. And of course, it goes out to my Substack audience. This is a great way that you can support me. My podcasts go early access on Substack. They also go ad-free on Substack. So I do put ads for the radio hour because this is the radio, but all of my other podcasts will be ad-free on Substack, and you do get early access. I also have some great articles, and or at least I hope you think they're great. I put a lot of work into them. So the show we're doing tonight is actually going to be a little review of an article I just released, and it is very, very timely. But before we do that, yes, I will invite you to check out all of the great affiliates that I have and ways that you can support me. So I mentioned the Substack. I have a Buy Me a Coffee. You'll see an orange circle with a little mug inside of it. That's where you can buy me a coffee or a few. We still have the Cognitive Liberty Conference up there. We are just trying to find the time to be able to transfer. But in the meantime, check that out, CognitiveLibertyConference.com. You can still get tickets to watch the replay. And it was a phenomenal conference, fantastic information. Unfortunately, more relevant than ever. I kind of wish that weren't true, but it is. So check that out. You can also send me snail mail, and you can send that to Courtenay Turner at 6041 Rural Plains Circle, Suite 110, number 106. Franklin, Tennessee, 37064. And you can send fiscal support that way, letters. I've received some beautiful handwritten letters, which is always a treat. So that is the snail mail address, and that is on my website if you didn't catch it when I just read it off now. And then we also have some really great affiliates, and the promo code for all of them is COURTZ. So that's COURTZ. That's my nickname. And this will get you your discount on relaxsaunas.com. This will get you Restore with Quartz. This is also, we have Magic Dicol, the RNC store. So go check out my website and see if there is any affiliate that works for you. And that is also a really great way that you can support the work I'm doing. I do have a Gives and Go as well. And that's another way you can make a contribution. We have a Venmo option that is Venmo at Courtenay, spelled like Courtenay, -Turner. So any of those are really great options. I really greatly appreciate any kind of support. And of course, if you are not in a position to fiscally support, heading on over to any of the podcast platforms that you prefer and hitting that like button, sharing the information with people you think would appreciate it, all of that goes a long way as well. And of course, supporting me on social media, and you can reach out. I love to hear from you. So all of that. Now we've gotten all that housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about this crazy year. We are in 2025. This is the year that Alice Bailey predicted was going to be the externalization of the hierarchy. And, what do we think that is? I mean, some might say that's essentially where the spirits, she calls them the ascended masters. Other people might say the demons are going to be among us and interacting with the humans during this time. And if when you watch on the screen, we had it up, but that's the article on my Substack that I had just released, and that is called the 2025 Centennial Conclave, Unmasking Lucius Trust's Century-Long Agenda for Global Transformation, an investigative deep dive into Alice Bailey's UN-connected network and the plan to externalize the hierarchy through global summits, and AI ritual. I had done an episode here on the radio not too long ago, a few months ago, right in the beginning of the year, and I talked about the externalization of the hierarchy and how she predicted it would be 2025, and I called it the cyber Satan. I think that's turning out to be a little more accurate again than I might have hoped. That's kind of what it's starting to look like to me, for sure. So I stand by that one, unfortunately. But I wanted to go through it again, and we'll have a slightly different twist on it. Yeah, the externalization of the hierarchy and cyber Satan. But this time I thought it was really important because that we discuss this, because June is a crazy month with all these globalist events, and we've also got World Invocation Day coming up. That's June 11th. So this week is going to be very interesting, and it's supposed to be a strawberry moon, and we'll go into that. But of course, Alice Bailey said there was great significance on those full moons. So World Invocation Day happens to fall on this strawberry moon. So they're definitely planning to invoke the world teacher, the Christ. And for those of you who are Christian, this is a Christian radio, that is not Jesus Christ. Just to clarify, that is the Christ. And Alice Bailey and Blavatsky and other esotericists and theosophists have made it very clear that they are talking about the Christ, who is a world teacher, sometimes called Lord Maitreya. And they say that it is like a Buddha, a Krishna, that this is not Jesus Christ. So I just want to make that clarification. There's a lot of Christianese that gets floated around, and I do think it's intended to be deceptive. I've done lots of discussions on that on several radio hours and podcasts, and I think that this is no different. It's all couched in love and light, and I don't know who could object to love and light, but I think it is very deceptive language, and that's why I want to raise awareness around it. So let's start by reading this quote, and then I'm going to play a video from Walter Veith, and I actually think that I'm going to reach out to him, see if he would do a show. I think he does some really fantastic work, and he breaks things down in a way that's really accessible for those of us who are not theologians and not biblical scholars. I think he does fantastic work, but we did air a video clip in the last one in the beginning of this year, but this one is focused on this quote. So I'll read the quote and then we'll play the clip. Thus, a great and new movement is proceeding, a tremendously increased interplay and interaction is taking place. This will go on until 2025 AD. During the years intervening between now and then, very great changes will be seen taking place. And at the great General Assembly of the Hierarchy, held as usual every century, in 2025, the date in all probability will be set for the first stage of the externalization of the hierarchy. The present cycle from now until that date is called technically the stage of the forerunner. It is preparatory in nature, testing its methods, and intended to be revelatory in its techniques and results. You can see, therefore, that Cajons, masters, initiates, and world disciples, and aspirants affiliated with the hierarchy are all at this time passing through a cycle of great activity. And boy, did that seem true. So let's play this video. I think they do a fantastic job of walking through this and bringing a biblical perspective to it.
Bailey. 2025 hierarchy will manifest itself. Now, this is interesting. Now, Alice A. Bailey is basically the prophetess for the United Nations.
Yes.
She is the one that followed Blavatsky.
Yes.
Now, when I was still involved in all of these things, I was pertinently told by one of the highest channels in the world that if you are a student of Blavatsky, then you have arrived.
Yes.
This is a personal experience. And Alice A. Bailey, of course, Temple of Understanding and all of these things in the United Nations, they are schooled. The whole education system is schooled on Alice A. Bailey. Let's have a look at this quote. It comes from a book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy, where we must explain who the hierarchy is.
Mm-hmm.
The hierarchy are those spiritual master entities that run the world from behind the scenes. This is a reality in the thinking of the United Nations, right?
Correct.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have it as an official organization affiliated to the United Nations.
Yes.
And this hierarchy, if you know your Bible, is, of course, a demonic hierarchy. These are demons communicating with humanity.
Yes.
This is what it is. Now, we can look at the publisher. It was written in 1957, and it's Lucis Trust, which originally was Lucifer Publishing Company. But the name was too much in the face, so they changed it to Lucis Trust. Same thing. She writes, "Thus a great and new movement is proceeding, and a tremendously increased interplay and interaction is taking place." Interaction with whom?
Yes.
This will go on until... That's stunning. AD 2025. During the years intervening between now and then, very great changes will be seen taking place. When was this written? 1957. This is interesting. Very great changes will be seen taking place. And at the great general assembly of the hierarchy. What's she talking about here?
A meeting of the demonic forces.
A meeting of the demonic forces, held as usual every century. In 2025, the date in all probability will be set for the first stage of the externalization of the hierarchy. What does that mean? Where they will present themselves to humanity so that you can see them face to face. Does that sound like Satan masquerading as an angel of light, saying, "I am the Christ, I have come back"?
Yes, I've changed the laws.
Didn't we deal with that in the spirit of prophecy? That he will say, "I have changed the laws." So must there have been an attempt to keep Sunday by that stage?
Yes.
Is he reinforcing it?
Yes.
Were there calamities that led people to believe these things? We're just putting it into a biblical scenario. Which countries would be hardest hit? Those that had
The light Protestant country.
and rejected it. National apostasy will be followed by
National ruin.
interesting. 2025. The date in all probability will be set for the first stage of the externalization of the hierarchy. The present cycle from now until that date. Is she making that date prominent?
Yes.
What was the date in Deagle?
2025.
What was the date in that movie clip?
2025.
Who runs Hollywood?
Jesuits.
Jesuit Theater. Fascinating. The present cycle from now until that date is called technically the stage of the forerunner. Forerunner to whom?
Satan.
Satan. It is preparatory in nature, testing in its methods. Are we being tested right now as to how far we can be pushed?
Yes, how far they can put the control on us.
And intended to be revelatory in its techniques and results. You can see, therefore, that Chohans, masters, initiates, world disciples, disciples and aspirants affiliated with the hierarchy. Excuse me. According to the statement from Alice A. Bailey, an official part of the ruling powers of this world, are the people in the world involved in this issue and people in the governments talking to these entities?
Yes.
So there's communication between the demonic world. Could these demons be saying there's coming an intervention, we must prepare for it, get your space wars ready? I mean, we're really talking conspiracies.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I hope that all the sensitive people have tuned out at this
Put on
stage.
the tinfoil hats.
Yes. You can therefore see the Chohans, the masters, the initiates. So where would you find initiates?
In secret societies.
What do they call a person who leads, let's say, a Masonic lodge?
A master. A grand master.
A grand master, even a worshipful master. Not just the word worshipful master. Jesus says, call no one master. and you shall worship the Lord thy God and him alone. And here this man is called Worshipful Master. Shouldn't that ring a bell in every mind out there that is associated with secret societies? Shouldn't they run for their lives? Shouldn't they flee from them, knowing that this is a demonic organization, if they even dare to use terminology like that?
Yep.
But they don't see it. Initiates, world disciples, and aspirants affiliated with the hierarchy. Affiliated.
That means
Joined together with demonic forces.
sitting at one table.
Are all at this time passing through a cycle of great activity. She continues, today human beings as a whole are so loudly invocative that the entire trend of the life of the hierarchy and its plans to date have been subjected to change. I'm glad God interferes every now and then.
Yes.
To postponement as far as certain interior and purely hierarchical determinations are concerned, and to a hastening of certain plans which were slated, if I may use such a word, to take place several centuries later than this, but which, owing to the unexpected preparedness of humanity, can take place not prematurely really, but securely in the fullness of time. This is amazing. Of course, this is eyewash.
Yeah.
Satan knows the time frame exactly, but he's talking to his people as though, this is going to go on forever, because you are so beautifully brilliant. I've listened to many of these communications, and the way he speaks, and in the New Age movement, the Maitreya, my dear ones, my super intelligent ones, my this, my that, it's incredibly irritating.
The terminology of fullness of time is also...
And that I was just going to comment on. I'm glad you noticed that too, the fullness of time. He knows the time frame. We've talked about time frames, and we certainly haven't made them long time frames. 2025 is well within those time frames. Now, we're not saying 2025. This is a demon saying 2025. So the fullness of time as regards the particular planning with which we are dealing is from now until the year 2025. That's pretty definitive.
Yeah.
A brief period of time indeed, in which to see the consummation of the larger purpose of the planetary logos. That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
That is Satan taking the place of Jesus Christ.
Yes, it's terrible.
Unbelievable. Working through the three major centers within his body of manifestation. That's his disciples. That's the governments of the world. Now, there are rumors in the realms of, let's say, the king of Mana, the king of Mana, who rules all the nations and has this pot of gold that he sits on to finance the nations, that every single leader, so they say in these pages, that every single leader somehow has to sign a contract with this logos. That's very interesting. We're deep into conspiracy theories now, but we're not actually in conspiracy theories because we're quoting directly from the sources.
Yes.
And if someone doesn't want to believe these sources, that's their prerogative. But the United Nations runs its schedule according to it. And the year 2025 is becoming ubiquitous. We're reading it here, we're reading it there. So,
as you heard him say, the United Nations runs their schedules by this, and the United Nations is really setting the stage to be the epicenter of global governance. That's kind of what it looks like, right? I did want to make a quick disclaimer. I had put it at the end of my article. I know people will say, well, not everybody who's in a secret society or even a Freemason is necessarily inherently evil or somehow in on a plan. And I agree with that. I know several personally who are great people. However, I think it's important to note that Alice Bailey herself very explicitly laid out her vision that the Freemasons should be the ones to essentially create the world religion. And I have in my article a link to my tweet that I had written. It's a pretty lengthy explanation with quotes from Alice Bailey as well as screenshots where she's talking about how she believed that Freemasonry would be the key institution that could facilitate the externalization of the spiritual hierarchy and the establishment of the universal spiritual framework, often referred to as a New World religion. So I just wanted to make that disclaimer. That doesn't mean everybody who's in these groups is necessarily in on the plan or somehow a bad person. I don't mean that at all. But it is important to note that that was what she believed, and she saw them playing a very important role. So before we get into some of the organizations that are probably very aware of these spiritual prophecies and are lining things up accordingly, I thought we would just take a look at some of the, very quickly, some of the more spiritual organizations that are trying to invoke this externalization of the hierarchy. We have the Seven Rays Conference, which actually just happened, and it was the 39th conference. And they say this year is too important to miss. Of course, because the 2025 Centennial Conclave, that's determining the destiny of humanity, as they say right on the opening of their website. So they say, dear friends in Christ, in the one work. So this is, remember when we talked about theosophy, this is all about the oneness. This is my biggest concern with all of these teachings, is that it's about creating one. They want to obliterate all distinctions. And this is going to lead to, if they're successful, this will eradicate the free will of humanity. And I think it's really important to think about it. Like when you think about the UN, what are their exoteric messaging, right? The veneer is all under creating world peace. And that sounds lovely, right? Who doesn't want peace? And that it's very hard to argue against a mission of peace. However, when you think about what that really means, and I go back to this video that I listened to with Robert Mueller. We've talked about him before. He was the one who created the World Core Curriculum for Education predicated on Alice Bailey and her education in the New Age. And he was talking about how, we have to create peace. That's the mission of the UN. And when he was explaining it, I realized that that's why they have to get rid of all distinctions, because you can't have any competition of thought. So a way to think about this would be, imagine your utopia, your perfect world and, your perfect dreams and vision. And I could have mine. Those two might be in direct opposition to one another. That doesn't mean that mine is bad or yours is good or vice versa, but it means that they're in direct opposition to each other. And therefore, if my dreams come true, then yours can't. And that's why they need to eradicate all distinctions. We all need to become one. We have to create this collective. And that is done under the guise of creating peace. But really, by creating peace, they mean creating one. And one versus the many. So hopefully that's a way you can think about that, because I know peace sounds like a very hard thing to argue against, but when it's obliterating the free will of humanity and the free will of the individual, then we have to consider maybe it's not as wonderful as it may sound. So that's the Seven Rays Conference, which was just last month. Then we've got, I wanted to point out that at the end they talk about how, they see all of us have already anticipated this year to come. Humanity is responding, but unconsciously, to the new descending energies from Shambhala. Shambhala is, the will force. The impulse from the Sanat Kumara demands to learn sacrifice, But at this moment, we mainly see the selfish humanity fighting back, influenced by the Black Lodge. Alice Bailey would imply that this Shambhala is the White Lodge. And what they're saying is that this Black Lodge is the selfishness of humanity, the separateness of humanity. Right? So this is what I'm talking about. It's all about the one. We have to get rid of the distinctions. I don't think that. This is what they think. And that is my concern. So that is the Black Lodge. We're gonna scroll through this here. Then, of course, we've got the World Invocation Day. And that is going to be June 11th this year. I have a video from last year where we talk about World Invocation Day and what they're doing and how they invoke this prayer. They say that World Invocation Day is a world day of prayer and meditation when men and women of every spiritual path join in a universal appeal to divinity and use the great invocation. And remember, I had played the clip, if you have been listening, a year ago, where Eleanor Roosevelt was involved in one of the earliest World Invocation Days. And she recites this prayer, and which I'm not going to do. The only thing I will mention is that at the very end, the part that creeps me out is when they talk about sealing the door where evil dwells, but they don't tell you which side they're sealing it, if we're in with evil or they're locking evil out. I always find that very disturbing. But I'm not going to read it, but you can look it up. It's right on the World. It's in my article. You can also go to Lucis Trust website, and it's there. But it is a universal, it's a day for universal prayer, invocation, and meditation. World Invocation Day is a day of prayer and meditation when men and women of every spiritual path join in a universal appeal to divinity and use the great invocation. So again, you see how they're saying it's a syncretic religion, right? They're trying to get people of all different types of faiths to join together in this one meditation and prayer. And they say together they focus on the invocative demand of the humanity for the light and love and the spiritual direction needed to build a world of justice, unity, and peace, right? Again, it's all about unity, creating the oneness. This special webinar will be, and they say that it'll be an opportunity for individuals around the world to all join together in observance of this day. And then they offer where you can find this prayer. So you can be contributing to the one work, right? ONE, one work of building right relations. We hear that term, right human relations, from the UN quite often. Then I wanted to point out the June 11th is also this strawberry moon, and the USA Today talks about it. They say that this year it's going to be a little bit more dim, and it'll be a little bit smaller than usual, but it is going to be a strawberry moon. So it'll be a full moon. This has incredible significance to the esotericists and the Bailey acolytes and disciples in terms of evoking these types of energies. Then towards the end of the year, we have this Sagittarius festival that Lucis Trust will be hosting. And this is December 4th in London, December 5th in Geneva, and December 4th in New York. And they say Sagittarius provides a point of balance in which the vision is consciously deepened and meaningful activity expanded. In meditation, the steady eye is developed, which perceives clearly the higher spiritual values prior to losing the arrow of mental power, with purposeful intention towards the goal to be achieved. This is the quality as it develops, which will carry humanity through the portal of initiation. In reflection during this week, we will work with clear, will-inspired energy on a beam-directed, focused light, a light so compelling and one pointed that next immediate goal to be achieved by the human family stands fully revealed. That goal is a world condition of right relationships between men and between nations, of cooperation and sharing between all people, races, and ideologies, and the right distribution of world resources, which belong to all humanity. as extremes of all kinds are eliminated, and moderation and reason will become descriptive of humanity. The word united may begin to approximate its true meaning with the assembly halls of the United Nations. So again, we see that they have direct relationship with the United Nations. And I saw a lot of references, obviously, to the unity, to collaboration, cooperation. This is all about the age of Aquarius, and they do believe that we are moving out of the Piscean age into the age of Aquarius. And I think I have something down later on that. But this is a common theme that we keep seeing. But they believe that this time is when we're moving into the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is all about the collective, all about the collaborative. The Piscean era was too separate, too individual, too competitive. We keep hearing this theme, right? We saw this in the Changing Images of Man document. They talk about this. Marilyn Ferguson's Aquarian Conspiracy book, right? Which was she was the assistant to Willis Harman, who did the Changing Images of Man document and research. And then, of course, I've done so much research lately. We've done a lot of shows on Game B, and it's the same kind of language, right? It's slightly different, but they talk about Game A is too competitive, rivalrous, and we need to move into Game B, which is collective intelligence, collaborative, cooperative. It's a similar kind of a language, right? So that's what they're talking about. And that's part of why this time period with 2025 is so important to them, because they believe that now humanity is ready, because this is the Centennial Conclave of the hierarchy, right? So they say, Alice Bailey said, this has been going on since 1425, and it happens at the first quarter of every century. And that we don't really realize all of the evolutions that have occurred, the spiritual evolution, until the next century. But I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like things are looking a little crazy right now. So it certainly seems like she may have been onto something. So then we'll get into some of the global governance planning in June 2025, aligning agendas for a unified future. And they had mentioned in that video the Deagle report in 2014, a small and relatively obscure website, although I don't know it's all that obscure now. Most people have heard of it, called the Deagle, started publishing a startling forecast: drastic population declines in some of the world's most powerful nations by the year 2025. And I know there was a lot of buzz a few years ago when there was certain, experimental injections that were going around, and people kept talking about the Deagle report, and they were concerned that there might be some correlation. So the predictions sent shocking shockwaves through communities worldwide, sparking debates, conspiracy theories, and urgent questions, as one might imagine it would. So what else do we have? We have Lucius Trust has stated the importance of the United Nations manifesting a vision of the one humanity. So again, we have this is the oneness. And the United Nations has expressed their dedication to this mission, and they've scheduled several meetings of all sorts aimed at that mission for the month of June. We also have the 2025 Bilderberg meeting, which is scheduled to be at the Grand Hotel in Stockholm, Sweden, and that's supposed to be between June 12th to June 15th. And I think that's pretty interesting. I don't know if that's a coincidence. There's a lot of overlap between Bilderberg members, Trilateral Commission members, a lot of people who are very influenced by New Age concepts, New Age ideas, things that, may have come from the writings of people like Alice Bailey. The recent Trilateral Commission meeting in April discussed subjects like Ukraine war and the future of European society, artificial intelligence revolution. There we have our cyber Satan looming, and the global economy, soft power in the age of Trump, cryptocurrency, status update, North America on the rocks, neurotechnologies, and the battle for your brain, and technology in the military domain. Jakob Nordengard, who I have a show I have done with him. It will be released soon. He is fantastic. He has done some phenomenal writing, books, and he has a great Substack as well. And his latest article was called Bilderberg's Over Stockholm Externalization of the Money Masters. And he suggests that it's highly likely that these topics will also be discussed during the Bilderberg meetings. And I think that that's a pretty good guess. And if we look, you can look on the Trilateral website. They talk about some of their previous discussions, things like AI ethics, foresight, and ethics by design, digital ethics summit. So this is the Trilateral Commission figuring out, the future of AI and potentially how they're going to control and censor. So Digital Ethics Summit. And in her keynote, Elizabeth Denham, Information Commissioner's office suggested there's no dichotomy between ethics and innovation, but ethical considerations should dictate the direction of travel. And she's talking about AI. The panel on how do we embed an ethics by design approach discussed how organizations are developing ethics by design approaches today and what can be done moving forward. It was chaired by Hitan Shah, Executive Director, the Royal Statistical Society. Panelists included Robin Toms, CEO Yoti, James Kidner, who is the Director of Partnership, Improbable Kriti Sharma, and the VP of Artificial Intelligence, Sage, Tabitha Goldstaub, and co-founder Cognition X, Elizabeth Denham, Information Commissioner, ICO, and Stephen Dedman, Global Deputy Chief Privacy Officer of Facebook. Chief Executive Nuffield Foundation, Tim Garden's keynote focused on social well-being and data ethics. Nuffield Foundation's initiative on the social impact of data, algorithms, and AI. That sounds to me like Fabian socialist tactics being applied to AI, which ties right in very nicely to the last article I just released on third way politics and technological age of Aquarius. So you can check that out, but that seems to be right in hand with that. Some of the other meetings and summits that are scheduled for June 2025 associated with global cooperation or multilateral agendas, as they call them, would be the 113th International Labor Conference. That's also held in Europe. It's in Geneva, Switzerland, and it's the International Labor Organization, and that's also in June. And it's continuing into its second week. Includes the annual forum of Global Coalition for Social Justice on June 12th, focusing on labor standards and social justice issues. And social justice issues is often used as a way to create the oneness, right? This is a way to obliterate distinctions and boundaries, and that is part of creating the oneness. 8th Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, organized by the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. This event takes place in Geneva from June 2nd to the 6th, addressing global strategies for disaster risk mitigation. And they say, we look forward to global and regional platforms for disaster risk reduction to be held before 2030 to assess and discuss progress on and give practical guidance to the implementation of the Sendai framework, including on the implementation of the present political declaration. The 37th UN Treaty Bodies Chairpersons Meeting, also scheduled in Geneva during the first week of June, and that's already happened, so you can watch, they have links where you can watch the meetings that they held. And they say that the meeting involved discussions among the chairpersons of the UN human rights treaty bodies to coordinate and strengthen human rights monitoring. So they're dictating what the human rights are and how they will be monitored. G7 Summit is set for June 15th to the 16th, to June 17th. And this is in Canassis, the Canadian Rockies, hosted by Canada. And the agenda is expected to focus on inclusive economies, climate change, regulating emerging technologies, and security issues like migration, Ukraine, the Middle East, stability. As a group of 7, G7, presidency in 2025, Canada will host the G7 summit in Kananaskis, I think I said it right, Alberta, in June. Canada intends to work with G7 partners on common priorities, including building economies that benefit everyone, fight climate change, and managing rapidly evolving technologies. NATO summit, and that is planned for June 24th to 26th in The Hague, Netherlands. And the key topics are defense spending, with 23 of 32 members meeting the 2% of GDP target, Russian aggression, transatlantic relations under new leadership, with a push for a wartime mindset. And this is a quote. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says, I am pleased to announce that the 2025 NATO summit will be held at the World Forum in The Hague from June 24th to 26th, 2025. We are grateful to the Netherlands for agreeing to host this meeting for the first time. Netherlands is a founding member of NATO and makes critical contributions to deterrence and defense of the alliance. At our summit, leaders will make decisions to continue to adopt and strengthen our alliance for rapidly changing security environment. Together we are stronger and safer in NATO, is what she says. So then we've got what is the unique significance of 2025? We've talked a little bit about this, but I thought we would go through the age of Aquarius, right? The 2025 is considered particularly momentous due to several converging factors. First, it coincides with a new age governed by Aquarian energies, as they call them, the sign of the water bearer that fosters goodwill and brotherhood. And this is a quote from Alice Bailey. The Aquarian state of consciousness as a pervasive force in many today cannot fail to stimulate change in the consciousness of the human race as a whole. To the extent that the world servers, this part of the world goodwill, the world servers, in the consciousness of the human race as a whole, with the human kingdom can maintain their pose within the stream of Aquarian energy, receiving, giving, and living the power and love available to them. So they will serve to irradiate and transform the whole human environment. Central to all experience in the life of the disciple influenced by Aquarius is the beauty of a group life, group good, and group service. So again, this is all about the collective, right? There's no individual in any of this discussion. Bailey's acolytes and disciples believe we are witnessing a transition out of the Piscean era, which is afflicted by separateness, right? So this is all about creating the one, all about, getting rid of the individual distinctions and individuality. So then we've got the power of thought to manifest a new civilization. And this is also a quote. I believe that this life of service to the youth in the 21st century will be what leads to the new culture and civilizations. Another quote from Alice Bailey, where she's talking about the problems of the Piscean civilization. The problems are that we've been wrought by the sense of separateness, fear of death, racial inequalities, me first, survival of the fittest mentality, divisions between the rich and poor, political polarization, environmental degradation, violence against women, religious conflicts over control of resources. Again, this Malthusian kind of worldview where there's limited resources and we need to figure out how to distribute them, right? Totalitarianism, authority and control over individual rights and freedoms, and the list goes on. We can see that the transition to Aquarian thinking, one that is both inclusive and group-oriented, will not just solve one or more of these problems, but all of them together. Once the principle of inclusiveness, one of the key attributes of the Aquarian civilization, is firmly rooted in human consciousness, once the group is considered ahead of the individual, the attention will shift to what is best for everyone. Are we so sure that we're going to get rid of all of our uniqueness, our individuality, and we're just going to all blend into the one, and somehow that's going to be best for everyone? Although we are not all the same, so I don't know quite how this works. unless they're going to, literally control everyone, enslave everyone, and put us into a noosphere, which is what it sounds like the goal is. And it sounds like they want to use technology to achieve this goal, create the technological singularity. Then I want to talk about the World Economic Forum and their focus on global economic transformation. Lucis Trust has developed a partner focus with the World Economic Forum for through what they call the cycle of conferences. And from that website, they say, drawing from the vision and vast expertise of the leaders engaged across the forum's community, the Great Reset, this is a few years ago, talking about the Great Reset, initiative has set a set of dimensions to build a new social contract that honors the dignity of every human being. This initiative specifically targets major global conferences with particular attention to the annual Davos meetings. Their engagement with the World Economic Forum reveals how the organization seeks to influence global economic discussions from a spiritual perspective. In their analysis of the 2021 World Economic Forum, Lucis Trust framed the Great Reset initiative as an opportunity for transformational change that could build a new social contract that honors the dignity of every human being. The organization views such global conferences as part of a cycle of conferences and of councils that they believe brings these gatherings under the direct guidance of those in the council chamber at Shambhala, who know the will of God. This perspective illustrates how Lucis Trust interprets secular power structures through an esoteric lens while seeking to influence their direction. Although I would argue that a lot of them are very much influenced by Bailey and the esoteric works, and that it's not all that secular. So this is, from their website. I highly recommend you check it out. It's the cycle of conferences, the World Economic Forum, the Davos Agenda. This was from January of 2021, but they have like a whole section on visualization. And so you can see how they're influencing from this spiritual perspective. And then we've got the Cycle Conferences initiative exists just for such opportunities as this, to act as an intermediary, a channel to ground and amplify the will to do good from the hierarchy and to see the proceedings with these energies. In the book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy, it is said that this work of attempting to bring the major world conferences under the impact of the will to good began when the Allied forces had won World War II, and a powerful first ray activity, the activity of will or purpose, was swinging into the Christ as the leader of the forces of light empowered the ashrams of the masters upon this ray to strengthen the hands of all disciples in government and politics, to enlighten the various national legislators. So you see how this is influencing policy and attempting to influence global policy and national policy. If effective, the cycle of conferences and of councils, which is being initiated by the statesmen of the world, would thereby be brought under the direct guidance of those in the council chamber at Shambhala who know the will of God. And I have a whole section in the article that I just wrote on Shambhala and how Madame Blavatsky and Bailey both talk about how Shambhala is located. It's a fictional place, but it's located in the Gobi Desert. And this is where the will force is. So they say, okay, so here we have the will of God, technology and spiritual evolution integration. So this is where we see that I keep saying how I think a lot of this technological, age of Aquarius, this technological singularity really has spiritual roots and occult esoteric roots. And, I call it the technological immanentization of the eschaton. And I think that's very much in line with this idea of the externalization of the hierarchy and bringing these technological advancements in order to create a collective intelligence, to create a unified religion, unified world, unified global governance, because they're talking about replacing all human government, right? So that's what it looks like is happening. So we have the again from Lucius Trust, this is another quote: when perfected forms and organized vehicles and dynamic power are related and unified, then we shall have full expression at the point of the deepest descent, consecration of the mind of God in form, with a radiation which will be dynamically effective. And that is from Esoteric Psychology, which is another book from Alice Bailey. And it's in the companionship of the one work. And then she's in her book, The Reappearance of the Christ, she says the true mysteries will reveal themselves through science, and the incentive to search for them there will be given by the Christ. Again, not Jesus Christ, the Christ. The mysteries contain within their formulas and teachings the key to the science which will unlock the mystery of electricity, the greatest spiritual science and area of divine knowledge in the world. So divine knowledge, the gnosis, essentially, the fringes of which have only just been touched. And there's a whole PDF you can download all of that, and that is on the technology and spirituality and the writings of Alice Bailey. So Lucius Trust has published extensive materials connecting advanced technology with spiritual evolution, right? And we've talked a lot about spiritual evolution. This is, a concept that's people like the evolutionary leaders talk about. Barbara Marx Hubbard with her conscious evolution foundation. A lot of the Game B people talk about the spiritual evolution, conscious evolution, and even the Dark Enlightenment, right? They talk about it from a little bit of a different kind of an angle, but they're also talking about spiritual eugenics, essentially. So this concept seems to be pretty pervasive, and especially now. So they talk about where, particularly in their discussions of what term technology and the Christ force. And back in 2023, an autumn publication explores themes, and that's what I was talking about. It was the Christ technology and the Christ force is the document. And they explore themes that are parallel to transhumanist concepts, including the development of superhuman physics. That sounds a lot like human augmentation, right? The expansion of consciousness to include a superconscious world. So this is this idea of using technology to interconnect everyone, whether it be through, brain interfaces, remote brain interfaces, or chips, or whatnot. And the enhancement of human sensory capabilities include infrared and ultraviolet vision. The organization discusses future technologies that would operate based on the moral qualities of their operators. Don't know how comfortable we are with that. I'm not sure what their moral qualities are, and if they align with mine necessarily or yours, right? We need to consider that. Suggesting that immoral people will not be able to set them going. So remember, to them, immoral people, selfish people, right? Barbara Marx Hubbard talks about this all the time, how, the selfish basically don't evolve, and therefore they need to die. And by selfish, I mean people who value individuality and who are separate, who might prioritize their own survival. This is seen as a very negative thing. This is someone who does not have the moral quality that, organizations like the UN or Lucius Trust would endorse. While purely mechanical mechanism must be transformed into the moral mechanism. So this is where, I talk about how They will either use social engineering, more of a Fabian-style approach, gradualist, incremental type of psychological manipulation to convince you of the right human relations, so the right ethics, right? Social ethics, as they would call it, or they will force it, and they'll force it through these smart contracts of the UN. But either way, they're trying to get everyone to comply and operate with what in accordance with what they deem to be the social ethic. So the concept aligns with certain transhumanist ideas about technology becoming more integrated with human consciousness and values, though framed within the Lucis Trust spiritual worldview. Their publications also address artificial intelligence and digital technologies, viewing these developments as part of humanity's spiritual evolution. They discuss how the world's virtual and artificial intelligence is magical, while acknowledging concerns about AI's impact on employment and society. You think that might definitely be a concern, but it's okay because we'll all be spiritually ascended and we'll all be part of the noosphere and the singularity, and so we probably won't be aware. We'll just be cogs in the machine. I'm not hoping that happens. I'm just kidding, but this is technological focus demonstrates how Lucis Trust seeks to provide spiritual interpretation and guidance for their emerging technologies. And then I had looked into a little bit of, because we've talked quite a bit about biodigital convergence and the transhumanist agenda. And there is I didn't go too much into it, but there is the Future of Life Project. It's the Future of Life Institute. It's a global think tank that's dedicated to steering the development of transformative technologies. Of course, that word again, transformative, such as brain computer interfaces. Peter Thiel, we've mentioned quite a bit of him lately, has made a notable donation of $25 million in SHIB tokens to this institute, and it was made in the context of funding longevity, which is often kind of code for transhumanism and immortality. And this is an organization that a lot of the World Economic Forum members have praised, and they're advocating the brain chip technology. So that's just one example. And then we've got they were involved in introducing OpenAI back in 2015. So you can look at that by Gregory Brockman and Ilya Stukever, the OpenAI team. So this was back in 2015. They say an OpenAI is a nonprofit artificial intelligence research company. Our goal is to advance digital intelligence in a way that will most likely benefit humanity as a whole. So again, the whole, the collective, unconstrained by need to generate a financial return. So I guess we're not going to have to worry about jobs. There's going to be some sort of UPI. Is that what they're implying? Since research is free from financial obligations, we can better focus on a positive human impact. We believe AI should be an extension of individual human wills and in the spirit, they claim, in the spirit of liberty, as broadly and evenly distributed as possible safely. But I want to highlight when they say that it's an extension of individual human will. So they're talking about kind of this consciousness integration. They discuss concepts such as embedded intelligence, there it is, and the Internet of Things, envisioning a future where the world's objects will be communicating with each other. We have this already without any interaction from us. The vision parallels discussions of biodigital conversions, right? We've been through this, and I outlined in that article on the path to mass surveillance, all the various types of Internet of basically Internet of Things, Internet of Wearables, Internet of bio-nano things, all the integrated things. So yeah, so that, and I think we have a video to close out with. But before we do, there was a part that I wanted to mention that's in my article. When they talk about the three planetary centers and their interconnected functions, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity. So they call Shambhala the source of divine will. And they say it's the center where the will of God is known. And Shambhala is described as being located in the Gobi Desert. We had mentioned that. Once a fair island in the island of Sea of the Tibetan Plateau, now is a fair land, an oasis surrounded by barren deserts and salt lakes. This is from Madame Blavatsky. The legendary place in Central Asia serves as a residence of great spiritual adepts and is headed by Sanat Kumara, the lord of the planet, whose seat remains hidden in etheric form. Fabled Shambhala, as Madame Blavatsky calls it in her book, the secret doctrine was an etheric city in the Gobi Desert, the invisible headquarters of the Mahatmas, a brotherhood of great spiritual masters who had moved there long ago after the submergence of the land of Mu under the Pacific Ocean. So you can learn more about that in my article, the 2025 Centennial Conclave, Unmasking Lucius Trust's century-long agenda for the global transformation. And we will stay tuned and see what the rest of 2025 holds. But we are seeing lots of governments that are coordinating. Unfortunately, a lot of them have already signed on for what some people might call the beast, the beast system, mark of the beast, digital IDs, and they're pushing for that here in the United States as well. They're pushing for tokenized economies. So we will see what happens. But those who are aware can, always resist, and hopefully we will be able to retain our individual free will. So I will close out by playing the short video from the World Invocation Day website from Lucius Trust. And again, I would invite you to check out my website. It's CourtenayTurner.com, spelled like Courtenay, COURTENAYTURNER. And if you enjoy the work that I'm doing and you want to see me continue, please consider supporting. And I will talk to you soon.
World Invocation Day is a day of prayer and focused spiritual intention, when people everywhere join together and sound the great invocation. Today we face the fact that materialistic values have led humanity to a state of profound difficulty, with a variety of interlocking political, economic, social, and ideological crises coming to the fore. Underlying these outer crises, however, are major crises of consciousness. What appears to be a strengthening of darkness in the world is really an intensification of ancient conflicts between past and future, between selfishness and group welfare, and between our collective karma and humanity's spiritual destiny. On this day, which occurs each year at the time of the Gemini full moon, the mass desire for a better world is concentrated and propelled upwards in a united appeal to divinity. Humanity becomes the bridge, linking spirit and matter, and standing as the transmitting agent through which a flood tide of love and light is released throughout the world. The Great Invocation is the perfect vehicle to lift the mass desire for relief from suffering, for it expresses humanity's need and pierces through all difficulties and doubts, penetrating straight to the mind and heart of the one in whom we live and move and have our being. From this high point, a response is poured forth, illumining the way ahead and revealing the vision of a new civilization. We need love to govern the relationships between people, and we need the power of the spiritual will to reorient world desire so that through humanity, the divine plan can work out. Please join together with people throughout the world in this act of planetary service.